Yo guys, what is up? Max, we're in a Palworld video, and today we're talking about 10 things that I wish I knew / the game doesn't tell you when you're getting into it. Now, I've been playing Palworld for numerous days now. I've had put in well over 40 hours, and these are things that I've discovered along the way that I really wish I knew, so hopefully they help you get into the game and have a little bit smoother start and progression throughout the game. Hope you enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. At our number 10 spot, I wish I had known that there's no stat respec. At least I'm 40 hours into the game and I have not found a way to respec your stats, meaning that every time that you level up and put a stat somewhere, that stat is going to be permanent. And obviously, you're going to want to be optimal because this game does get a little bit challenging later on. Now, I do want to drop some suggestions on where to be putting your points. Obviously, you could take them if you want, but I found it really helpful to put points into HP, stamina, and weight. You do not need work speed at all, in my opinion, because you can catch pals that have bazillion times better work speed than you ever will have, and it's not optimal to ever be sitting at a bench working on something when you can just have your pals do it. So I think work speed is a dead stat. Also, I really don't recommend putting any points into attack. As you play the game and you're starting out, attack, it only upgrades by 2 points every level, versus like HP, you get like 100 HP a level, and once you play more and more, you'll find out that your pals are just going to deal way more damage than you will. So I think attack is also kind of a dead stat. I've been dumping the majority of my points into HP. When you die, you drop all of your stuff on the ground, which is a big pain in the butt, and you're not going to want to be dying, especially if you're fighting something and you're almost catching it, and then it gets a hit on you and it one-shots you, or some of the enemies, the later ones, especially the hard ones, can two-shot you. I'm now sitting very comfortably with my HP amounts at over 3,000 HP. I've been increasing my weight and my stamina, and so this is something that I wish I'd known before getting into the game, is that there isn't any respec, and putting points into attack and work speed, I just, in my opinion, are not worth it. The next thing I wish I knew has to do with these TM trees. Now, you can find these trees scattered throughout the maps. There are not that many of them, and they will have skills on them that you can teach to your pets. Here we've got Sand Tornado, Fruit Shockwave, and Spirit Flame. Now, these are one-time uses, and they allow you to teach your pal a move, which can be really nice when you're starting out. This is a 75 power Dark Flame skill, or Spirit Flame skill, that's Dark type, which is really nice. And I can teach this to any single pal in my party. There is no, this pal can't learn this move. So if you want to make a water type and give it electricity types, or let's say, yeah, water is weak to electricity, then you could teach your water Pokemon things that will be beneficial to against electricity, like ground moves. You can teach your water type ground moves. There isn't any restraint, and it doesn't mean that you have to equip them. So for example, I could teach my Rayhound this, or my they already know Spirit Flame. Let me teach my Warsect Spirit Flame. So my Warsect just learned Spirit Flame. It looks like I'm currently getting attacked. Sorry about that. But my Warsect now learned Spirit Flame. That doesn't mean he instantly equips it. It just means that it is now in his available roster. As your pals level up, they will earn more and more moves. And as you can see, now if I wanted to swap Warsect to Spirit Flame, now I can have a Dark type on him, a Stone type, and a Fire type. I actually taught him this Fire type, so you can diversify your list. You're not going to want to have a Pokemon or a pal that's got 3 of the same types, just because it doesn't mean that you're always going to be needing those type effectiveness. Speaking of type effectiveness, I wish I had understood this a bit earlier. You can find this in your survival guide. This is the type effectiveness of all of the types of pals in the game, or their statuses that they do. And it's very like one-to-one, meaning that there's not multiple things that are good against grass. There's not multiple things that are good against water. Every type in this game has one thing it's good against and one thing that it's weak to. So, for example, neutral isn't good against anything, but dark is only going to be good against neutral. Water is not going to be good against ground. Only grass is going to be good against ground. So it's a very similar typing to Pokemon, which you may be familiar with, but it's a little bit more simplistic. And then once you kind of learn these new types, because elemental effects are significantly stronger when you're like doing the damage that they're weak to, for doing bosses or the boss fights or the dungeons, you're really going to want to try to have pals that have matching elements, or the elements that deal more damage. And so understanding this chart is a massive help. The next thing I wish I knew has to do with swapping out your pals. Now, this is kind of a bit of a strategy, but your pals, while they're in your inventory or while they're like in your party, passively regenerate health. So if you're doing a fight against a boss or an enemy and they get low, it's much better to pull them back and put them back in your party and wait to use them again, because they will regenerate health. If your pal dies in this game, you have to wait either 10 minutes to respawn them, or if you sleep with the pal in your inventory, like you go to bed in a bed, the pal will actually just get its health back and revive overnight. But as long as you're like fighting a boss or an enemy, if they're getting low, you can just pull them back into your inventory, swap them to a different guy, and that way you can do these harder boss fights even if you're underleveled by just constantly swapping out pals. Another thing to do is, if you see one of these bosses or an enemy that you're fighting doing a strong attack, because there's a lot of signs of like a big attack coming, you can just withdraw your pal before the big attack hits them, and then put them back out right before after the big attack is done. And so you can actually increase the power of your party and your ability to kill some of the bosses in the game by constantly swapping your pals around and pulling them out when you see a big attack coming. This will help you clear the bosses, which I'll have a video on later, because the bosses are incredibly efficient experience farms, but you need to be able to kill them efficiently. The next thing I wish I knew has to do with base placement. Now, once you make a base and start putting things down there, it becomes incredibly difficult to move your stuff around. When, for example, if I like built this and then I didn't want to have this here, there isn't an option just to basically move this. My only option is to break it down, and when I break it down, then I get a bajillion materials in my inventory, because they all go to my inventory, and then you can't move, and you need to grappling gun around, which, by the way, is a tip. If you are encumbered and you can't move, you can use the grappling gun to actually move around, so that's a way to move when you can't actually move. But building your base in the right spot and kind of being confident in the spot that you're building a base is really, really important. So this was our first base, and this one was a bit of a mistake. And I want to explain why, so that you don't make the same mistake that we did. We found this really cool area, and we're like, oh, it's really interesting. Let's place our little PAL management box, which is where dictates the area of your base, and we placed it right here, looking over the water, which we thought was really nice. However, because we did this, part of our circle that encompasses our base is in the water. As you can see, this like blue line, that's where we could build our base. However, this game doesn't let you build over water. So even though that we're above this water and we've got this area, when we tried to build these planks out over it to kind of like expand our base, it wouldn't actually let us. And so one of the biggest tips for making a base that I can give you is to build it in a large open area. You are going to need all of the space that you can get. So don't try to build it where like the main center of it is going to be overlapping with a lot of water, as you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot doing that. The next tip of advice for base building is try to build it on a flat surface, as flat as you can get it if possible. Just to show you an idea, obviously, like some of these things can be built on inclines. So like if I try to make this bench, the bench will adjust to the incline, which is just fine. However, there's a lot of times where you're trying to build things and there is an incline and things will not snap. Larger things will not snap to that big incline. So as you can see, you just can't really build this ranch in this entire top part of our base. So we're also wasting not only space in our like lower area where the water is, but there's also a lot of things that we can't just build on this hill. Or you can just kind of build up on top of this to try to flatten it out, which we do need to do, but just it'll make your life easier building on a flatter surface. And the last tip with base building is you are going to find that the limiting ingredient or the limiting material for your base building, the number one limiting thing, is going to be ore rocks. You can build these mills where your pets will go and farm trees for you. You can build these things where you can build stone reserves. We've got 1,200 stone here. Right now in this like wood chamber, we've got over 4,000 wood. So getting wood and stone isn't hard at all. However, getting ore is incredibly difficult. Now, the best thing about ore is it respawns. So because you can't actually make a store or basically build something in your base that would farm ore for you, finding a location where you're putting your like base that is near ore deposits will allow you to start getting into metalworking and building tons and tons of like ammunition and all of the things. You're gonna need metal to start building the better rarities of the like pal spheres or the pokeballs. So the base that we have, I know it's kind of dark here, but we built this base because we found this hill that just has all of these ore deposits. And you can see that there's 3 here right now, but this entire top of the hill, they're broken right now, but they'll respawn, is just ore rocks. And we've set up our base so that our guys are just farming tons and tons and tons of ore, which has been really, really fantastic for us. The next thing I wish I understood has to do with work suitability. So every PAL comes with a specialization in terms of their typing, in terms of the moves that they have, in terms of their passive skill, but they also have work suitability. And this work suitability will determine what they're going to be doing on your base when you deploy them to your base. Things with handiwork are great for building things that you would be building yourself, such as making arrows, building PAL spheres, things like that. If you need a bunch of wood, you're going to want lumbering. If you need to make medicine, you want medicine production. And when I first started playing this game, I was just ignoring this entirely, and I didn't really understand it. Now, one thing to note here is getting some generalist guys that will do a ton of different things on your base and will just go around kind of doing all the tasks is fantastic. And I have a video that I will link in the description of my 10 best recommended pals that you should be catching in your first like 30 hours of playing, guys that I couldn't live without. However, one thing to note is when you have someone that is a like generalist, that they do a ton of stuff, it's hard for them sometimes to stick to a certain task. So, for example, getting something that just does one task, like this Azarobe, for example, just does watering. And so if I really need a lot of watering to be done, getting guys that do multiple things, like do one watering and do other things, sometimes they'll start doing watering and then they'll walk away and do something else because something else needs to get done. And then they take way longer to get that actually thing done. So finding guys that are specialized that only do one thing can be really nice, such as these dig toises only do mining, meaning that if they're deployed in the base, the only thing that these guys will ever be doing and all of their effort will be towards breaking rocks and giving you stones and ore so that you can get into your like metal crafting. The next tip of advice I have has to do with laying out your base. Now, the pals will follow the most direct path to get the things done that they need to get done. So, for example, this war sect is good at planting, he's good at lumbering, and he's good at transporting. Now, when Warsect breaks down a tree or something like that, they are going to put that tree, that lumber, in a box. If your box that you put lumber in is really far away, then they are going to path very far away to carry that lumber and then put it in there. And if you put lumber or wood in a chest next to, or if you only put wood in a chest, then the pals will know that that is the wood chest and they will put the wood in the wood chest. And so as you can see, this is currently just going up. I'm not touching anything. The pals know that this is a wood chest because only wood is in it, so they will be depositing all of their wood here. And you want to put the wood near where they're going to be breaking down wood, because otherwise they're going to keep constantly pathing away from the wood and going like across your base if you have wood in another chest, so they're going to become inefficient. This same thing goes with food. The pals are going to go that are working really hard. They're going to go from their workstation to their food station. So you want their food station with like bajillion berries right next to where all of them are going to be working really hard, because if your food station is across the way from where they're going to be working, they're going to be slowing down. And this is just tips to kind of maximize productivity in your base, is putting chests down where they're going to be gathering so that they don't have to transport that gathering, and putting the food near where they're going to be breaking down things, because those guys are going to get really hungry and you don't want them going across your base and pathing so that they are taking extra time to get things done. The next thing I wish I knew has to do with the passives of the pals that you can catch. Now, certain passives do different things, and there are certain tiers of passives. So, for example, you can find a passive that gives something 30% movement speed and it's called Swift, or you can find a passive that's 20% movement speed and it's called Runner. If you can find guys that have a maximum passive and synergize with something that they're doing, that's going to be fantastic. For example, this Verdash that we have on our base is 3 handiwork, 3 into gathering, 2 lumbering, 2 planting, 2 transporting. This is a fantastic pal to have around on your base. And the one that we have working on our base is Diet Lover, which means that they're going to be consuming less food. But more importantly, they've rolled with Artisan, which gives them 50% increased work speed. Getting passives like this on pals that you plan on having around your base is going to make your life so much easier. You also want to avoid putting pals on your base that have bad passives. Something like Coward isn't going to affect how well this pal works on a base, but there are things like Lazy. Let's see what Pacifist. Pacifist is minus 20% attack. Slacker. There it is. Slacker. Minus 30% work speed. This is obviously not something that you'd want to put on your base because they're just not going to be doing their work that they need to be getting done. And you can capture a lot of pals in this game. It's very incentivized to keep capturing more and more and more, because the more that you can capture, you can actually condense them and level them up, which we're about to talk about in a second. So that leads us to our next point with the Condenser. Now, this is something that you get to build a little bit further into your playtime, and it is a really important part of leveling up your pals. So if we take my Foxy Sparks here, my Foxy Sparks, I need now, if I want to level up his power, I need to capture 32 more Fox Sparks, which is a ton. The first level to level them up to 1 star is 4. Then after 4, it's 16, and then it's 32. So it's going to get increasingly difficult to level up these guys. But as you can see, when you level them up, they get more HP, they get more attack, they get more defense. That can vary depending on the person, like how much attack they're getting. As you can see, my Shadowbeak, if I can level this up, who is like a higher level guy, he's going to get over 100, almost 100 more attack and almost 100 more defense, versus the Foxy Sparks is basically like a starter Pokemon guy. He's not going to get that much from leveling up. However, all of them will get their passive leveled up, and this is where it gets really important. So, for example, Foxy Sparks passive, Huggy Fire, allows me to pick up Foxy Sparks and use him as a flamethrower. All of the pals that have a damage passive, when you level them up, the passive also levels up, meaning that when I pick him up at a level 1 flame versus like a level 2 flame, he's going to deal significantly more damage. From level 1 to level 2, I went from about doing 160 damage per tick with the flamethrower to about 200 damage per tick with the flamethrower. So it is quite a significant amount. And guys that you get, you're going to want to capture a lot of. For mounts, I haven't found that increasing their mount passive actually increases their move speed or allows them to be mounted more. So this seems like it's really just important for pals that have a damage passive. Mossanda, for example, would be a good one to level up. You get Grenadier Panda, which allows you to shoot a bazooka basically on their back. And if I wanted this bazooka to deal more damage, I would need to level up Mossanda through the Condenser, because actually leveling up Mossanda's attack I don't think benefits the grenade launcher. The next thing I wish I knew has to do with how to best capture the pals in this game. Now, some of the pals are really difficult to capture. Even when you get them down to very little health, they can be really difficult to capture. But you can employ some tactics that will help you capture them way better. So this is a Hyper Spear. This is a very high level pal ball, and if I wanted to try to catch this Memarist at high level, if I throw it, I have a 0.11% chance of catching it. Basically, I have hardly any chance to catch it. However, if I throw it from behind the Mimimarist, all of a sudden that 0.11 goes all the way up to a 2%, which I know 2% isn't a lot, but when you're comparing that to 0.11, that is a massive improvement. And this works for any pal. Any pal that you throw a Pokésphere or a Palsphere at from behind or while they're sleeping will give you a significantly higher chance to capture. The Foxy Sparks, 97% chance to capture from the back. Now that he's aware of me, he's probably not going to turn around. But as long as he's not facing me, I'm going to get that back bonus, which is going to increase your chance of capturing them. And this kind of leads me to my next point of kind of instance resetting some pals. This is only really important for the ones where you get like really later. But sometimes you get a pal really low health. It's like 10 HP, and it's still a basically impossible chance of catching it, like a 0.1% chance. And that's going to be because it's aware of you. If you get a pal really low, and then sometimes you can leave the area or walk away, the pal will reset. Then it is no longer aware of you, and then you can get it the low health bonus and the stealth bonus, and then you have a really good chance of catching it. So that's a great way of doing it. Also, later on, you unlock traps, and particularly the stun baton. If you stun a pal with the stun baton, your chance of capturing it goes up by 30%. Not flat 30%, 30% of what it was. So if we look at with our Megasphere right now, I would have a 82% chance of capturing this Cativa. If I... oh, he's attacking the deer. If I hit him with my stun baton, now he's stunned. Now I have a 100% chance of attacking, of capturing him. So building the stun baton when you get it can help out a lot, so that you are wasting less pal spheres. The next thing I wish I knew has to do with XP and drop chances / increases. There's going to be times where you are farming a lot of guys in this game for their resources. And two of the best ones that you can get early are Catris. And I cover this in my like 10 best guys to have. But Catris, when you're fighting with her, neutral pals drop more items when they're defeated. So when the elk will drop more meat, and they'll drop more leather, which is fantastic. Resources that you're going to want to have. Pen King you can get around level 15. The Fire Pals will drop more items when you defeat them when Pen King is out in your party, which is fantastic because one of the best farms early on for leather is just killing the little Foxy Sparks, which are usually like level 4 and 5. You can kill them really easily, and they drop 1 leather. If you have the Pen King in your party, you're going to get more from them. However, if you capture something, you're still going to get that material, and you're going to get increased experience. You get more XP from capturing something than you get from killing it. Now, I'm not saying to go out and capture everything, because creating the pal spheres and throwing them is expensive, and it only gets more and more expensive, especially once you get into the higher tier balls. But just know that if you're trying to get experience, one way to get a ton is catching high level pals. You'll get like thousands of experience if you're capturing some high level ones. That's not the fastest experience farm. I will have a separate video on the fastest way to level up very quickly that I'm not going to be able to cover fully in this video. But just note that capturing pals will give you more experience than killing them, and you'll also still get the materials. And my very last tip is to use your map markers. Now, I have not done a good job of this, and I wish I did better. But when you're exploring the map, you'll see multiple icons. These icons are going to be boss fights. They're going to be towers of the gym leaders, and they will be fast travels. One thing that will never, ever, ever get marked on your map is dungeons. And dungeons are a great spot to farm ancient civilization parts, which you need to craft some of the crazier things in the game, such as crafting the Pal Essence Condenser, the grappling guns, anything's on this right side in purple. The sphere launcher, you're going to need civilization parts, and one of the best ways to get them is from dungeons. Dungeons are not ever going to be marked on your map, so if you come across a dungeon entrance, I strongly recommend just dropping a marker. It takes 2 seconds. You can put like a little boss icon or whatever you want to mark where that dungeon is, and it will stay on your map when you leave and come back, turn on the game the next day. all of your markers stay, and that's a really great way to keep track of where dungeons are so that you can get some cool resources. There's lots of resources in the dungeons. There's cool monsters in the dungeons, and there's ancient civilization parts. So doing those dungeons is great, and it's a real pain when you're like, oh, I've seen 3 of them, I just have no idea where they are, and then you got to spend an hour looking to find where those dungeons are, where you could have just marked it on your map immediately. Guys, that is going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. These are things that I wish I had known before I had sunk like 30 to 40 hours into this game. And now, hopefully, you know them. I wish you guys the best of luck on your Palworld adventure. I've been having a ton of fun on this game. It's very addicting, and it's a surprising hit for me. I wasn't really expecting to be having all that much fun in this, and I definitely have been. So if you're checking out the game, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope these tips helped. If you are looking for more Palworld content, I will have a linked comment where I'm going to be posting a bunch of videos, and I'll have links to those if you're looking for the 10 best pals to catch, the best XP stuff, and so much more. And that's it. Going to do it for the video, guys. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye.